This is the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by Factor Meal Kits. Use code CHGO Cubs 50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life with any active subscription at factormeals.com/CHGO Cubs 50. Hello, everyone. Welcome into the first live Sunday edition of the CHGO Cubs podcast. And Brendan, we are bucking a trend early from last year. You and I are here. Cubs win, sing the song, fly the W. Their first win of the year coming on Sunday. They defeat the Texas Rangers. They drop the series. We have a lot to talk about. We will talk about it all, but at least to start the show, Brendan, Cubs win.
Did we save the season? Some are saying we saved the season, you and me. We broke the trend of always losing every Sunday, and look at us. Now we have a win.
Credit to us. Yes.
Credit to us.
Hello to everybody in the live chat. Drop your comments. Hit that like button. We appreciate your support. If you were listening on your podcast feeds later on Sunday, Monday, we're happy to have you. Welcome in. A lot to talk about, Brendan. This was an interesting series. And, of course, you have the day off on Friday. So sort of a 4-day experience there in Texas. And Justin Steele already out, missing some time. So that, of course, I think is the big storyline. But I think initially I do want to focus on the W here on Sunday and immediately just giving major credit. What a game from your leadoff hitter, Ian Happ.
Oh my gosh. 4 hits, had a walk, professional at-bats. That last at-bat in the 9th inning, you could tell that Leclerc did not have his off-speed going, and the command wasn't there. And what was perfect about that at-bat, and you could tell too, like Leclerc threw a 83-mile-per-hour sweeper, which he doesn't usually throw against lefties. Happ whipped through it, got his composure back, took all those borderline pitches, fouled it off, and worked that walk. That is the prototypical standard of a guy, and that is now who Ian Happ is. And to me, that's the plate approach of the perfect ideal leadoff guy.
Yes, it was nice. I mean, especially to see so quickly Ian Happ succeeding. He didn't have his best game to start the season on Thursday, but Sunday, I think, was a really good example, including that very patient professional at bat that you mentioned against Leclerc to bring in the game-winning run on that walk. That's why so many people have, clamored for him to hit higher in the orders, when he's hitting left-handed and lead things off, because he just has that approach. He has that pitch selection. And these are the types of games you were hoping for he would provide out of the leadoff spot. So the Cubs get the win. The final on Sunday, 9-5. As we said, the Cubs do drop the series, but a competitive game in the opener that, of course, we talked about. I talked about with Luke and Ryan and Cody at Country Club in Chicago, a great live post-game event. Close game, though, in the opener, like a game that obviously you had your closer on the mound with 3 outs to go. You felt like you could have won that game. Saturday, bit of a laugher, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on Kyle Hendricks and things of that sort. So plenty to get into, but I think all things considered, you'll take the 1 out of 3 against the defending champs as they get their rings and come back to Chicago and hope to see some better overall baseball maybe at Wrigley Field when the Rockies come to town, if the weather will allow for it.
It is pretty funny how we spent 5 months in the offseason debating who should play third base, who should play first base, and talking about defense and all the concerns. And of course, within the first series, baseball has a way of being the most annoying sport possible. And despite Morel looking amazing at the plate, the multiple errors, the mishaps, even by Madrigal, the one missed glove, hard hit ball in that first game, baseball has a way. So even though they won that game, even though we're feeling better on a Sunday, to your point, clean it up, get a cleaner style of play, get those defensive outs made. And hopefully over the next month, we're not talking about, are we concerned about Morel's defensive competency at third base?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot I want to get into in this show. We're going to try to keep it to around an hour, but we'll see. We
We
have
do have our lovely producer, Sarah, today, so we kinda have to.
yes, we are planning to have one Cody Delmendo join us later to give some of his opening weekend thoughts, but I think we'll start super chat from Fernando, a longtime chat member. We appreciate you, Fernando. Hello, guys. Glad to see y'all on a Sunday W. We're glad to be here on a Sunday W, Fernando. We came on last season after a lot of losses, and I don't think that it was our fault. Maybe
Did we even win one game last year on a Sunday? I
I don't
honestly
know.
don't even know.
I really don't know. We got a lot of Sunday Tyone losses, so that's
We
just
did.
how it is.
We did.
Hello to Rachel over in the UK. Happy to have you here. Lot to talk about, and we can jump into the third base thing right away. It's an interesting thing when you start the season because there are 159 baseball games left, and of course you lose your ace for about a month. Hopefully, that's kind of maybe the conservative estimate. You see how that heals and things like that. Not the best way you wanted to start your season, and certainly highlights, as you said, a lot of the discussion that we had throughout the offseason. And it's one of those things they always say in baseball, like the ball will find you. If you're not ready, if you're out of position, if things like that, the ball will find you. We saw a lot at third base. The opening game, Madrigal playing in, rocket to him. They end up calling it a hit, but maybe a ball he could field if he were positioned like a normal third baseman. Morel, not a good, weekend defensively, certainly highlighting a lot of the concerns that people had about that, but his bat looks really good. The starting pitching depth, a lot of questions about that throughout the offseason. Kyle Hendricks obviously did not look good. Jordan Wicks dealt with some pretty bad defense on Sunday, so I think he did the best that he could. He had to throw a lot of extra pitches because of that defense behind him. We have new lineups. We have a new manager, new bullpen. Like there's a lot to talk about, Brendan. But I think we started with Ian Happ and sort of highlighting that. And I think that's, an immediate thing that jumped out to me of Counsell shifting the lineups. We saw different lineups depending on the handedness of the pitcher. We saw different guys in there. And I liked the way that he deployed things this weekend. What was your initial kind of thoughts? We've talked about Counsell. We've talked about loving what we've heard from Craig Counsell, the way he sees the game of baseball. But now we've watched him manage meaningful games for the Chicago Cubs. What were your kind of first takeaways from the Craig Counsell experience?
It was to be expected. It's comforting knowing that the guys on the team are going to be used in a way that optimizes their value. I'm not concerned about any of the decisions Counsell makes with the bullpen, with the positional side of things, with the lineup. I like also, for example, with a lefty having Nico bat leadoff, I like moving Nico down to the 7th spot and moving Ian Happ up. The best part about Counsell's philosophy is he is going to give the most opportunities to the best players. That's manifested in giving guys in the bullpen the highest leverage opportunities. It's also manifested in giving the hitters the most at bats. Ian Happ, Christopher Morel, Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki. Those
Yep.
are your best hitters. They are going to get the most at bats. That's exactly what we want to see going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my initial takeaway. I think a lot of stuff will move around. I know on Thursday initially some people were uncomfortable with how, Nico moving that far down in the order. That he did not look particularly good at the plate this weekend. So for now, that was okay. Don't come at me, right? I feel like that's fair. But he's going to move around. Counsell is going to be a bit more flexible than that. And I think my main takeaway was I like them giving Happ the shot at the leadoff spot. And beyond that, Seiya, Bellinger, Morel getting the most plate appearances behind him. And things will change. If guys struggle, if guys don't look like the players you expect them to be, or other guys start stepping up, then Counsell is going to be flexible and move things around. But I think for so much of last year, we clamored for Cody Bellinger to not end so many innings in the on deck spot, or Seiya Suzuki hitting 5th or 6th, long after he kind of got hot and deserved to hit a little higher. Counsell going with those guys right away. And it's obviously on them to pay that off, but that's the right way to start. So I was happy to see that. And we'll see, how he continues to change things and who gets in there as the season goes on. But of course, for a lot of these guys, you need a bit more of a sample to, start moving things around or making too big of judgments. But let's jump into the third base thing. I feel like that is the thing everybody wants to talk about. And, I see it in the chat, people are talking about Madrigal pinch hitting, Madrigal starting, Mastrobuoni getting plate appearances, things like that. For part of it, remember, Craig Counsell doesn't specifically make the roster. So he doesn't sign the players. The guys on the bench are the guys on the bench. He has a input in that, I would imagine. But if you don't like some of those guys, you're barking at the wrong guy, I think. As far as third base, the one thing that I would take away from this weekend is, as I said, it's a long season. These are not trends yet. It's 3 games. You come to Chicago and you see how things go, and then you can continue to evaluate. But this weekend did highlight a lot of stuff, as you said, that people were talking about all offseason and concerned or sort of suggesting could be things this team was going to need to look out for. And the third base thing right away is going to be a big part of that discussion. Morel did not look good in the field, but his bat looks great. And the options beyond him, if you want someone with more reliable defense, not particularly reliable hitters. So it puts Craig Counsell in a bit of a difficult spot. Now, my opinion would be, if you wanted to give Christopher Morel run, it's got to be longer than 3 games. You knew he was not going to pick this up just with 1 spring training and 3 regular season games. That being said, Brendan, it's a tough road. It is a tough road. He does not look good at third base. I will freely admit that.
Right now, the Cubs are projected 83, 84 wins. For them to make the playoffs this year would require them overproducing and hitting above their projections. For them to get to that point requires them to fill certain positions with cost controllable pre-arbitration guys. That way they can go out and make trades at the deadline that does put them over the first tier of the tax, but justifies the front office wanting to do that. For this team to be good, they need Bush to work out at first base. They need him or Morel to work out at third base. They need to graduate prospects like Shaw and PCA and Casey and get some production that's not going to cost them at a minimum $10 million per year. If that doesn't work, then we're going to have the same discussion going into this offseason that's going to light a fire underneath the job security of the entire front office. So it's not that Morel needs to produce this season at third base or getting production at third base for the sole purpose of making the playoffs this year. They need that production to ensure long-term this is a healthy team. So in one sense, right now, the risk is you're going to make errors at third base. It may cost you runs. It did cost you runs. It cost you innings. It cost Jordan and Wicks innings today. And it's going to be uncomfortable at times. But in an over 100-game sample, this unfortunately is the way forward to ensure that your long-term future is healthy. So I imagine Counsell is going to give them more of a shot. Unfortunately, we can backtrack and ask the question, man, I wish they did this in February of 2023, and we can always, nitpick those decisions, which I'm sure we will throughout the season. But right now, this is our reality. Morel has to, or someone has to fill that void.
Yeah, and not after their first win of the season. But you've heard us talk about this a lot, so I wanted to bring it up. It was what everybody's been talking about on social media. Maybe for now, we do have a couple super chats, but I want to talk about those in a second. I do see them, guys. We will get to them. I think today I was choosing to look at, I believe the throwing error brought in 2 runs, led to 2 runs for the Rangers. He drove in 3. Net +1.
There you go.
So maybe that's how we have to. It's like plus minus in hockey. It was a +1 today. So that's in the green. So yeah, and as Jailbreak says in our YouTube chat, it's not a new question. We've been talking about this for a hot minute, and it was kind of expected. I think the thing to monitor, and the reason I wanted to bring it up this early, was it's going to be interesting to see how they manage this. You do not have a staff that is overpowering and generates a lot of whiffs and can just blow teams away. You have a team, you have several pitchers that almost explicitly are trying to get ground balls. So you do need to convert them. You have one of the best middle infield defenses in the game. And it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that.
When you saw Madrigal in the first game, what was your first reaction?
Mine was what my reaction was. When I said it on the postgame show, like we've talked about, Madrigal and the type of player he is has a role, but they're not having and they wanted a defensive first at third because Steele was pitching. You have a left-hander generating ground balls on the mound. I get it. The problem is that that's your best next option. So that's where this conversation turns to, we'll see what they do. Because if you don't like Morel's defense at third, then you're going to have to put up with someone who can't hit.
Yeah.
And who needs specific, not instructions, but parameters to rate as a good fielder. So it's, you're sort of picking your poison there. It'll be interesting to see how they monitor this, because obviously there's a threshold at which if the defense doesn't improve or you continue to see simple plays not made, that's going to be a problem, but Morel he turned a nice double play in the game. One of the games this weekend, he did make some okay looking plays. So it's a work in progress, but we knew it was going to be in work in progress. So we'll see how that proceeds. Now, I do want to mention the big news, I think, of the weekend is Steele's injury. So he is on the injured list. We do know that. The reason I didn't start with that is we talked about that in our live postgame show on Thursday. So it's not that we're not going to talk about it, but we did spend most of an episode talking about it. And yeah, just to Donnie's point in the chat, I think both you and I are in the camp of ride it with Morel for now. If it gets to a point where you can't tolerate the defense and it doesn't start to get better, then you have to make a decision. But it's been 3 games. You wanted to commit to this. You have to commit to this. And that's going to have some growing pains, just like a lot of these.
Do you have confidence long-term that he is a solution, given what you see right now? How do you think the hill is too high for him to climb?
I don't know, man. He does not look good over there. And we talked about this, footwork, throwing mechanics, stuff like that. It's not an easy task. So we'll see. We do have to hit our first ad break here kind of quick, but we did have a super chat about Kyle Hendricks. We'll talk about him and his role coming up. Some other super chats to get to. And then, talking about, I see the chat talking about the lineup not having enough thump. Miguel Amaya had a good game on Sunday. Lot to talk about. We will get there, but want to hit our first ad break here for our wonderful producers.
Okay, Corey, Factor meal kits. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. And there's more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. If you like pancakes, smoothies, or more, you can discover a variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. It's very flexible for you busy people out there. You can get as much or as little as you need by choosing meals every single week. Plus, you can pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Gotta say, I was sick for like 2 weeks. Factor, the nutrition, I think it made me recover faster. Just having all those good, essential fatty acids and everything and getting good nutrition, my voice came back faster. So did Factor heal me? I think it did. Head to factormeals.com/CHGO and use code CHGO to get 50% off. That's factormeals.com/CHGO to get 50% off. Second break here from you guys know it, Circa Sportsbook. With Circa, games will strive to be a -110 split on the Circa Sports menu, unlike other sports books, which may use -115 or -120 splits. Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets, especially compared to other books. They also do not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who do limit their winning players. There's also real people behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other books who use chatbots. Download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. Also, be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. And if you or someone you know may have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537, text GAMB to 833-234, or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
Okay, let's hop into some of these super chats. Baseball Junkie, longtime chat member. Good to see you. My diehard Cub fan grandma since 1935. She has a diehard card. Passed away on March 9th at 99. Thanks for the resilient win for her today, boys. Happy Easter, guys. Condolences to you, Baseball Junkie. Rest in peace to your grandma. And yes, glad the Cubs could get the first dub of the season for you and for her. We appreciate you being here with us. And then we can get into this one from Mr. Cub _DB Swanson 7. Do you think Kyle should be kind of used how Smiley is being used? He locates, but is getting mashed. A lot of pitching to talk with you, Brendan. And I do want to get into all of that. We end up seeing the debut of Ben Brown. We see a lot of guys out of this bullpen. We see Jordan Wicks make a start, Kyle Hendricks make a start. Of course, I think initially my answer to that is that the Steele injury complicates a lot of this. And it puts part of the reason that we spend so much of the offseason wanting them to increase not just their depth. I think they have good starting pitching depth, but they do not have top of the rotation starting pitching depth. And we said a lot. And I think it was Michael Cerami from Bleacher Nation, friend of the show, who tweeted like the other day, Justin Steele is the most irreplaceable player on the team. I think he tweeted that Wednesday. And then on Thursday it was like, I shouldn't have said anything, but it's true. So they don't have anybody that reliably projects or that you can trust and predict to be a top of the rotation guy like Justin Steele. So him going out and missing a month really is not a great scenario for this team. It's going to give a lot of guys an opportunity. We already knew Wicks and Assad would be in the rotation. Now, obviously, Ben Brown pitches in relief, but possibly someone who you see getting starting opportunities. It's a big opportunity for those guys, but it puts a lot of pressure on these guys and on somebody to step up and not only eat innings, but give you those quality top of the rotation type performances that you were counting on Justin Steele to give you every fifth day. So I'll throw it to you. I think, again, one start, a really good offense in the Texas Rangers. And we've seen Kyle, even last year, go through those struggles where he has starts where he just gets mashed. He's not fooling guys and he is getting hit very hard. And he settles in for a stretch of really good starts. And especially if you're not counting on him to be a number 2 or 3, starts you can definitely live with. Now, the question is, does he bounce back in his next start? And what are you getting from these other guys to the point that you consider who's getting these starting opportunities? With Steele out, it really limits their ability to be as aggressive, I think, with some of these guys as you might otherwise want them to be.
Using Kyle the same way Smiley is being used represents an extremely worst case scenario where Kyle either lost feel for his stuff coming back from an injury or he's throwing much slower. They're very different pitchers on very different sides of the value spectrum. In one sense, with Smiley, there's some optimism because he's trying new pitch types. But on the other sense, there's some negativity with him because those pitch types might be necessary for him to be even on the team the entire season. When Smiley debuted this season in Texas, he didn't showcase any of those pitch types he was working on. He was still that sinker, knuckle curve guy. I was surprised by that. He was working on 3 different pitch types during the offseason, a splitter, a slider, and a harder fastball. The velocity was up, but we didn't see any splitters, nor did we see sliders. To me, that signals a lack of comfort with the pitch, maybe, until we start seeing him pitch in more games. So until I start seeing those pitch types, I think we have to project Smiley similar to how he was used and valued last season, which right now is in a multi-inning role. With Kyle, what I always look for is his post-game comments, his health, and his velocity. And he told us, didn't execute, location slightly off. So we can check that box. Okay, that's what he told us. And then the second box, how is the velocity? Well, he was hitting 90 miles per hour multiple times. So the velocity is there. The stuff is there. And then you look at where was he missing? Slightly belt high, changeup still looked like the typical changeup, just slightly off a little bit. If Kyle is injured or the velocity goes down, then you can start signaling some concern. But in one game, he looked pretty normal, just did not execute well. I don't have concerns about Kyle as much as I do about the other pitching depth at this point.
Yeah. To Craig's question in our YouTube chat, I believe Brendan has some graphs. I'm not positive.
Oh, I do. I have two graphs.
Yes,
They're new graphs.
I thought
I actually got your opinion on these graphs today, which you said you didn't like them. That's okay. It's okay.
I think you have a different understanding of what people truly.
Well, let's see what the people think. We got the people here today.
I think, again, hopefully Steele, it is on the more conservative end of the projection, maybe just a month, he can get back to form and get back in that rotation at the beginning of May or something like that. But hamstrings are tricky. He's going to have to go to, do a rehab start and make sure that he's ready to get back into it. So you want to be as careful with that as possible. I think the concern over the next month is highlighted of what we talked about in the offseason, that now, Shota is an unknown. So we'll see how that goes. But you don't have a lot of room for growing pains from these guys. And, even as we're saying, letting them settle in, of course, it's one, this is one start against the Texas Rangers, who are very good. They just won the World Series. They have a very good offense, deep lineup. So we're going to need to see more from these guys before we draw any conclusions. But this month is going to prove something that the Cubs are kind of going to have to overcome. And I also see it in the chat where it's highlighting too, like I said, one, there's not a lot of room for growing pains or adjustments. Like you kind of need at least one or two of these guys to be ready to go and pitching really well right out the gate. But also you want to make sure you're not putting too much strain on your bullpen. You now don't have perhaps your most reliable guy to give you really good starts, go deeper into games, and give the bullpen rests on certain days. Now you're turning to guys who we saw last year, whether it was Wicks, Assad, Hendricks, again, Shota, and unknown, like guys that weren't going super deep into games. So they had to use Leiter and Merriweather and ALLCITY every day.
Which, by the way, Leiter and Merriweather look great. I thought.
Yes, I did want to highlight that from Sunday. But you used a lot of bullpen innings this weekend. And if you're going to have to eat up an entire month without Justin Steele, you're really going to need some of these starters to step up and not only give you really good starts, but go deeper into games to take some of the pressure off of the bullpen. But I think as far as Hendricks goes, we got to keep seeing what the sample looks like. Yes, as Christian says in our YouTube chat, got to let these guys settle in. You can't make too much of a conclusion off of one game. And especially when Steele is out, you're already dipping into this depth. Steele is now out. You're waiting for Tyone to come back. There's not much of a choice for some of these things. You don't have the luxury to say, that guy doesn't look good. Let's put somebody else in. You don't really have that luxury, at least right now. I did want to highlight the bullpen, as you mentioned, really good on Sunday. So Jordan Wicks gives up the 5 runs, only 2 of them earned. The defense behind him, a very uncharacteristic and just almost disastrous error from Dansby Swanson, not being able to turn that double play ball. And then, of course, the throw from Morel. Bush also doesn't look great at first base, but that's a separate issue we'll touch on maybe another time.
Not the week for defense, put it that
way. Mark Leiter Jr., an inning, no runs, a walk and a strikeout. Julian Merriweather, 2 innings, a hit, no runs, 2 strikeouts. Hector Neris picks up the win, 1 inning, no walks, 2 strikeouts, no runs. And Adbert Alzolay locking this one down. Not a save situation, but he does lock this down, striking out 2, no hits, no walks. Really good day from the bullpen on Sunday. That was nice to see. And not only did I love Craig utilizing those 4 guys, I really liked the positioning of Merriweather. Tie game, a little earlier in the game maybe than we're used to seeing him. That was the 6th, but I think it was 5-5 at the time, and it felt to me like that was we need to keep this at 5 type of thing. Because I did see some discussion of this is early for Merriweather, tie game, this type of thing. You get 2 innings out of one of your better relievers, and it kept you in the game. It allowed your offense an opportunity to win this game, and they took advantage of it, and they did.
They have the luxury too that their right-handed relievers are also very good against lefties. Neris, Merriweather, and Leiter all have no platoon splits. With Merriweather, it's that north to south slider. With Leiter as well as Neris, it's those splitters. So Craig has the luxury of using guys he wants to use, but he's not limited by the handedness. Where if, for example, Hayden Wesneski was called up, he would be limited by the handedness because he would likely get smoked against left-handed batters. I think that's one reason why even Ben Brown was called up, because he offers some flexibility against left-handed batters because his pitch type is similar to Julian Merriweather's. But that's where the confidence with Craig Counsell comes from, because he's shown the ability now for like 7-8 years to maximize the bullpen value, but he does so in a way that correctly captures the leverage and context of the games. That's why I'm the most comfortable I've ever been watching a manager make these moves. I'm not second guessing anything. And even if I am, I'm wondering why I'm so stupid that I'm second guessing it. So it's a breath of fresh air, Corey.
All right. Well, we'll see how long all that lasts for everybody.
Give it 3 more days.
Before we hit our second ad break and bring in our good friend Cody Delmendo, I do want to talk about Ben Brown. I do believe that is what those graphs are for. Yeah. And I do want to talk about that. Obviously, not the situation that you necessarily wanted him making the debut and coming up. And, again, like everybody else, instead of immediately being able to look at him as someone to supplement things and maybe kind of an added bonus, he kind of joins this pool of, all right, guys, you kind of got to shoulder this burden for a month. So hopefully some of you are ready and can step up, because now your growing pains are a little less tolerable than they might have been before. And we see some of that in his debut. But what did you see from him? Obviously a tough situation for him to be immediately thrust in. But what did you think about that? What did you think about the stuff that he displayed? And I think more specifically, obviously he ends up getting hit at a certain point in that outing. Why did that happen? How does he avoid it in the future? Just talk to us about Ben Brown for a little bit, Pitch Doctor.
I might get in trouble saying this. I think I've been less optimistic than the general idea with Ben Brown. I'm still optimistic, but with Ben Brown, there's a degree of uncertainty with his pitch profile. But at the same time, it's that uncertainty which might be his peak value. So his curveball that we always talk about, that we always hear about, throwing 86 to 88 miles per hour. Few pitchers have curveballs at that velocity that's thrown with 5 inches of dropping action. If you filter last year, pitchers who threw curveballs over 85 miles per hour with at least 5 inches of drop, no one. So there's no one who has that pitch type, but it's paradoxically the same reason why you can't project him going forward, because you can't measure up a pitch type and whether that's valuable in the future. Now, typically right-handed batters need something with more sweep, not drop, but sweep. And that suggests he may have problems against right-handed batters and may be used better against left-handed batters. If I were projecting Ben Brown without having the hype and everything that we know, I would probably say he projects like a Julian Merriweather. I wouldn't say off the bat, because we don't have this precedence, that he's a legitimate bona fide starting pitcher right now. As bad as that might come off, but that's kind of what we have to work off of. Merriweather has essentially a very similar breaking pitch to Ben Brown. So if you look at this pitch, and then we're bringing Cody Delmendo, which I see in the background over here. If you look at this pitch.
Wow. First graph of the year.
First graph of the year. Look at this. This is a beautiful graph. On the bottom, or the x-axis, is like the amount of cutting action it has. So anything to the right around, like, for example, 20 is 20 inches of like sweep or cut. from top to bottom is the y-axis. Anything lower on the graph means the pitch tends to drop more. And so what you're looking at for curveballs is that Ben Brown doesn't really have much cutting action on that pitch. But if you also look at this, it also comparatively doesn't really have much, especially for high velocity pitches, doesn't have as much dropping action as well. So for a curveball in this sense, it's really tight north to south. And that is basically the same type of profile that Julian Merriweather has. That's why he's so good against left-handed batters. So when you compare him to like Wisniewski has that sweepy slider. You can easily project value because of that. And he's had success against right-handed batters. But with Ben Brown, you can't really project that against right-handed batters because he doesn't have a pitch type that looks like anything we've seen before. So that's where it's going to be interesting. Right now, unfortunately, if I had to project his current value, it's not as a starter. I don't think he's a starter right now. I think he's best used as a predominantly left-handed batter guy until he shows the ability to get right-handed batters out in low leverage.
Well, and that's a way we've seen the Cubs deploy certain guys to start their MLB careers before. So, I think Counsell said there would be some of that and possibly some spot starts. They're going to play it by ear, but we've seen the Cubs do that before, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't disagree with that mindset. Let the guy get comfortable, see how the pitch types play, and if you want to stretch him out, stretch him out.
But there's some like discomfort with that. That's where I personally as a fan, I want to know when this pitcher debuts that there's little room for like error. I don't want to squint and hope that, hey, this guy has a good pitch type. I hope it plays off against right-handed batters. I want like the Cade Hortons, right? I want to be greedy. I want to know this profile comes up. But I know you say that, but like it's kind of representative of where the Cubs season's currently at, right? Where we're in this no man's land and we're hoping and we want to get these guys good and everything. But at the same time, like damn, like I need some like super high end extreme outcomes. I need Morel times 5 at other positions. And right now, I don't think we have enough of that. Like, I don't think we have enough of those high extreme outcome guys. And we have too many of like the Madrigals and the Mastrobonis and these type of too much shrunken type of projections.
Sure. Yes, we know. Did you use shrunken there on purpose? Anyway.
Ooh, look out.
All right, couple things in the chat I want to note. Then we'll hit our last ad break here, and then we will bring in our guy, Cody Delmendo. If you didn't watch it already, I see the beer bat on Twitter. So if you're looking for the beer bat, it is not coming from me or Brendan. You guys don't want to see that. It is on Cody's Twitter, though, so check that out. I saw Susie in the chat, and I believe Joshua, Susie and Steven Kaysen were both at the game, saw the W. Steven says it is the first Cubs W he's ever witnessed in person. So, Steven, I'm happy you got to fly the W and sing the song there in Texas. Good job bringing home the W, folks. We always appreciate the support when you guys are on the road and hopping right in the YouTube chat. We appreciate that. And I also saw that our good friend Michael Collada, the Godfather, out of the hospital, back in the YouTube chat. Godfather, good to have you back. Hope you are well and enjoyed a Cubs W today, sponsored by Tom Ricketts. All right, so we will hit our. It would be Craig says it would be a wine bat for Brendan.
Maybe actually.
Yes, good luck with that. The full thing of red
wine. Could you
imagine
that? That would be a fun
all right, second ad break here, and then we're going to talk to our friend Cody Delmendo.
Speaking of beer bats, Blue Moon. Corey, Blue Moon gives you a dose of ballpark nostalgia without even being at the ballpark. In fact, Blue Moon was born in a ballpark at the Sandlot Brewery in Denver, Colorado. Its bold flavor, bright explosion of color, and iconic orange slice ritual guarantees a one-of-a-kind experience year-round. Why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something one-of-a-kind? It's best served, again, with that signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful, hazy color. Blue Moon Belgian style wheat ale is one of a kind every time. So get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter, celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And if you are in the market for a new car, there's the best offers of the year during the March Radness sales event. Make your way to Ray Chevrolet on Route 12 in Fox Lake to join in on the savings. One of the top selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest. You'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. It's the perfect tailgate vehicle that awaits you at Ray Chevy during Truck Month for a limited time. They're offering 0% financing for 72 months on new Silverados with over 100 available. 125 vehicles under $20,000. Seriously, guys, can pricing get more affordable? Everyone loves the word free, and that's what you'll get also this month at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake, a free oil change. And all you need to do is mention CHGO when scheduling your oil change. Start off the new year right and schedule it by April 1st. Visit Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Find new roads.
All right, folks.
Bring him in.
The graphs.
There
Here
he
is. One Cody Delmendo. And I do see, okay, we do have your mic. It said you were muted for a second. So, Cody, we'll bring you in here. You and I, obviously, we were at Country Club on Thursday talking a very traumatic first loss. Justin Steele leaves. The Cubs get walked off, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. After the weekend, a blowout on Saturday, but flying the W here on Sunday. How are you feeling? First series to start the year.
Oh, brother. I mean, I've been listening to you guys on my television behind me before I hopped in here.
How do I sound, by the way? I'm like losing my voice. Do I sound okay?
You sound wonderful, Brendan.
Thank you.
To go with your wonderful hair.
Oh, man. We should bring you on more often.
Well, honestly, I wanted to actually join you guys a lot more this year because I just like talking to you guys.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I need to talk to someone besides Corey too. Anyway, so
anyway, I'm just left with. I feel myself tugging myself one way and then tugging back because it's like so many people saying in the chat, right? Like we have the issue with third base, but like I'm willing to ride this roller coaster with Morel because it's better than watching Madrigal or Master Boney there. But I understand that Morel has to grow into this position at third, and it's going to take more than just spring training and a couple of games. But also like Dansby Swanson, come on, bro. I'm sorry, like, and Brendan, I know like. You were obsessed with him, but like that's inexcusable.
Yeah.
Honestly, this game isn't even like they win this game by 1,000 runs if Swanson if he just gets the double play. It was tailor made, and I think you guys said it too. But like, I thought Jordan Wicks pitched great today, and it's just not going to look like that in the stat sheet. Maybe great's putting it too nicely because he's still allowed 3 earned runs. He walked some guys after the Swanson error or whatever, or maybe it was the Morel error, whatever. Like it all kind of goes in together with me at this point. But like it's just, I'm just pulling myself back and forth. Like I want to be critical. I want to like I said in the season preview show, like this is the biggest prove it year to me in the Jed Hoyer era. Like we've waited long enough. This is year 4 the Jed Hoyer era, and I'm expecting playoffs, and I'm expecting something. I do not want to enter September and we are, projected for 90 wins and, it falls apart again, or I don't want to enter September and, we're 500. Like it's like it felt like 2 games this weekend. They did win today, but I felt like opening day, they easily could have won. They easily could have won yesterday if Kyle Hendricks was better. Right. And like, so that scenario is different, but I'm still cautiously optimistic, but I'm also very frustrated, rightfully, as a lot of people are, like the issues at third base and, the starting rotation now without Steele. And like, I sent a tweet from CHGO Cubs yesterday about how like it was the worst case scenario for the start of the season with Steele getting hurt. And people were like yelling at our account, that we like tweeting that was wrong. And it's like, it's not wrong. Like there's no worse scenario. Like, and we're already getting a taste of it. Like as much as I love Kyle Hendricks and I'm high on him to at least be good, like he shouldn't be starting the second game of the season, you know?
Yeah.
And I like Jordan Wicks, and I like the upside, and I think he can be a good middle of the rotation guy. And again, I think he was fine today, and the stat sheet won't show that because of the Cubs defense. But, you know, like he's never pitched a full major league season. And then Tyone's on the IL too, and hopefully he comes back here in the next week or two. And then it's who else am I missing? Oh, Imanaga, who will pitch tomorrow, which again, what should we expect? He's coming from Japan, and we saw with Seiya the ups and downs that he had in year one. So like, yeah, there's obvious questions here and things to be worried about. You know what I mean? So like I'm for once, well, maybe it's not even for once, but like for once, I feel like I'm a little bit with the chat on the irrational side of things. I'm never going to tweet like that because I just think tweeting like that is just unhealthy. But in my head and on the show, I will let you know whenever I'm feeling that way. And right now I am feeling that way because, again, like this is supposed to be the year that this team should be making the playoffs. It should be. And if they're not, it's bullshit, and we should be calling for names, bro. Calling for names.
Cody, they don't think this is a playoff team. The front office does not think this is a playoff team. We're seeing it represented by where they are currently in the luxury tax threshold, and we're seeing it represented by projections all across the board. If they were confident in a playoff team, they would have put forth the money to get them to that next tier. They're not. They don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
I think that this weekend, and it's been interesting to read the YouTube chat and even social media. I think it's an interesting like dichotomy of folks that are. It's 3 games. Hold on. I'm optimistic, things like that. And then a lot of people who I don't think are writing anything off or reacting to 3 games and making necessary conclusions. But I do think, as we've said, this weekend did show a lot of stuff that people were very rationally, and I don't even want to say concerned about, but I saw someone put it, I think on social media today. It might have even been in our CHGO Diehard Discord, where they put it as like there was a decent amount of stuff that people would have suggested, hey, these are the things that would prevent the Cubs from hitting the upper tier of their win projections. And that would be not having someone who's really a third baseman to play a pretty important position, needing several unproven guys to perform for your offense to really hit that, threshold where you can start blowing some teams out, get away from playing some close games, and then not having a ton of top tier rotation depth. And 3 games in, you got every one of those issues to sort of pop in and be like, hey we're here right away. Like, how do you feel about us now? So I think that it's an interesting spot. This is one where I would defer to our guy, Luke Stuckmeyer, and say, fan how you want to fan. I think, we are a few years into this, not a rebuild. And if you don't want to tolerate even these types of discussions where you sort of hold them to a higher standard, by all means, you can do that. If you're excited to see the young guys and the Ben Browns and Wicks and Assads and give Bush a chance and give Morel a chance, then you can do that as well. But I think the only thing I would say is I don't, and I said this on Thursday, Cody, like, I don't think that some of those thoughts are overreacting when they're things that we've been saying for 6 months. And again, jury's still out because it is 3 games. But I think to have been concerned about those things for a long time, all off season, and then just to mention that you saw them this weekend, I think that's fair. At the same time, like, I'm with you, and I think we're all on the same page here. Like, Christopher Morel looked great at the plate. It's a very tall order for him to figure things out at third, but I'm here to ride it out. And if that goes south and messes with their season this year, like, that's not on me. I didn't build the roster. So I think that's sort of just the position we have to take. Now, unfortunately, and I see a lot of people in our YouTube chat very excited to go to Wrigley Field this week. I hope we get to go. The weather looks absolutely putrid, which is sort of an annual tradition at this point. But I am just hoping that these games get in. We've got rain forecasted for Monday and Tuesday and snow on Wednesday for that night game. So Yeah,
wait.
that doesn't look great. And it'll be an interesting, that's kind of a very quick welcome to the MLB for one Shota Imanaga. Come to Wrigley, it's going to be 40 degrees and raining if we even get the play out there. So I think it's all just to say, I think there are a lot of reactions you could have to this weekend. And I think they're all fair as long as you're not like truly on too extreme of an end of them.
And I'm not trying, like someone in
No,
the
I
chat
didn't think that you were.
Yeah, I know you guys, but a few people in the chat think that I am. And like someone said, Cody, it's been 3 days. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. And that's the other part of me that's tugging me at this like relaxed thing. I guess what's frustrating is the fact that you knew you had all these issues going into the off season, and the only thing that they really did to fix it was re-sign Bellinger. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not like, you can argue about signing Matt Chapman. I know Brennan wanted Matt Chapman. I would have been okay with it. His bat scares me, and it would have perhaps blocked Shaw or something like that in some ways. But at the same time, like, at least the defense you're going to get there, and at least he's proven at some form with the bat in some aspects, and he would have had a lot to play for this year, considering you knew he wasn't going to get a long-term deal. But you had all this prospect capital, and you didn't trade any of it. You know what I mean? Like people, and this is the thing. This is what brings me back on why I'm okay with riding with Morel at third. Is like, if you ride with Morel at third, that gives you so many options at DH, right? People like, I was doing a Twitter space yesterday, and loyal friend of the show, Tanya, who's in our chat right now, I think she's like asking about Owen Casey and Alexander Canario. It's been at that point, it'd been 2 days. And it's because Casey is mashing in Iowa, and Canario, like, he hasn't got a chance really, And there's obviously various reasons why they're there. And I'm okay that they're there. But at some point, they're gonna be here. And it's like, how are you gonna get them in the lineup, dude? How are you going to get them in the lineup? So to me, that's why you have to play Morel. That's why you have to find a way to get him there. Because if not, then those guys are blocked, because they're going to play Ian Happ, and they're going to play Seiya Suzuki, and Cody Bellinger is going to play center, or he's going to move to first. And either way, Crow-Armstrong is going to be in center field at some point anyway. So just those two guys alone with Owen Casey and Alexander Canario, to me, like that is the sole reason why I'm willing to ride this roller coaster with Morel and see what happens, because I want to see those guys play, and I want to see those guys get it consistent at
Well,
bats.
and Brendan, you said too, that was one of the important things about that experiment, is finding those answers, and finding those answers that are not super expensive. I do, as we, enter, maybe the last 10 minutes, we'll see how long we go. I do want to talk. Yeah.
I know Cody would do
I do want to ask you guys, like, we've talked about those concerns, and again, these are things that we laid out all throughout the offseason. There was a reason that so many people wanted them to sign Montgomery or Snell or trade for Shane Bieber, things like that. And especially on some of the contracts they ended up getting, like, there was a reason people were talking about third base, whether it was Matt Chapman or someone else, just who can, really truly play that position. But I think we've laid that out. What I do want to ask you guys, and I'll start with you, Brendan, like, looking at what you saw this weekend, 3-game sample, of course, very early, but give me one or two, however many things you really liked that you saw this weekend. I think it's easy to look at, like, the way Christopher Morel hit, or Ian Happ's game on Sunday, but even just the way guys looked, for me, like, Seiya didn't have the best overall weekend numbers wise, but I think he looks good. I like the way he looks up there at the plate. Players for you that you looked and you said, hey, I liked the way this looked for 3 games.
My number one priority for 2024 it will be a theme this season, is filling the 26-man with cost controllable players. That will be my number one priority. When I watch these games, I'm looking for those guys. And this series, Morel obviously played up at the plate offensively. He can be one of those guys. Separate from Morel, I thought Wicks looked awesome. I thought Wicks is the same guy we saw last season. With projecting him in the future, he has the pitch foundation that projects well, that projects with confidence. He has a very straight four seam that should play against left-handed batters and right-handed batters. He has a changeup, his dominant secondary offering that should play well against right-handed batters, the type of handedness he sees most often. And then separate, he's developing a breaking pitch that looks good, that has a high degree of probability of working against left-handed batters. Whereas Ben Brown right now may not have a pitch against right-handed batters. Wisniewski, we know, does not have a pitch against left-handed batters. Wicks has pitches for both handedness. If there's one starting pitcher likely to fill that void for the next 6 seasons, it's Jordan Wicks. And even though he got eaten by errors, he showed those pitch types with a high degree of nastiness and stuff that inspires confidence. Of all the things we saw, I thought Jordan Wicks was the most encouraging.
So, Cody, I'll throw it to you, but I see folks doing it in the chat. Drop yours in the chat. I want to see if you're live in the YouTube chat. Drop yours in the YouTube chat. Guys, even if their numbers didn't look good, it's a 3-game sample, so that might happen. But guys, you thought, hey, this guy looks good at the plate. He looks locked in, or they look good on the mound. They look good coming out of the bullpen. I want to hear what you guys think on that. But Cody, give me a name or two guys that you thought, yeah, I liked what I saw this weekend.
Nick Madrigal.
I would have said it. Miles Mastrobuoni's at bat, and that
Ryan's going to block all 3 of us. He's not even here.
I mean, Hector Neris, I want to say the entire bullpen, but Hector Neris on Thursday looked incredible. And then tonight or today, he looked really good. Even yesterday, I know the Cubs, and largely because of Ben Brown, gave up all those runs yesterday, but I thought Luke Little had a nice inning yesterday.
Little looked good too. Yep.
The bullpen is inspiring confidence to me right now. And the key for sure is to make sure they don't get overtaxed, right? You had to use 6 guys on Thursday because Steele got hurt. Then, you kind of had you were in the game. You possibly should have won the game. If Kyle Hendricks pitches better, but he didn't pitch great, right, on Saturday. And then today, Jordan Wicks wasn't able to even go 5 because of the errors, which forced him to throw more pitches. Also, I am happy that Brendan agreed with me that I thought he looked incredible. I now will start creating my own graphs.
You should actually. I can help you.
You guys know that account Jay Kuda? I should do graphs him. You know what I mean?
That feels more a Delmetric kind of vibe. Right? Just circles around logos.
Right. We can make it happen.
But yeah, so I mean, I see
the bullpen.
Just looking at the chat, a lot of Julian Merriweather from the chat. I agree. Yeah. Julian Merriweather continues to look very good. That continues to look like a very nice find for the Cubs, picking him up and then starting to work with him. I think for me, and we talked about a little bit. I thought Miguel Amaya looked really good on Sunday. I'm very excited just for him to be there. I saw some discussion earlier in the chat of should he be starting? Should he be the starting catcher? How should they divide up those games? I think, again, Amaya's had to work through injuries and so much in his career. You do want to monitor that playing time. And Yan Gomes was so good for you last year. I think as Yan Gomes gets older, it's one of those things you monitor it, you see how his body's holding up, how his skill set is holding up. And if you have to adjust, you do. But I think the way the Cubs have handled Miguel Amaya, kind of delicately letting him get back in there, get his footing at the MLB level, learn this pitching staff, I think they've handled that really well. But he's just a very easy guy to root for. He's had a tough road to get back to this point, kind of reclaim that status as a prospect and earn this time at the major league level. Really good to see him on Sunday. And yeah, I mean, overall, again, wasn't the best weekend, but I think Cody Bellinger looks great. I see that in the chat too. I think he just looks great. He looks locked in, and I'm ready for him to kind of continue the work that he did last year for this Cubs offense. So that's the thing. It's an interesting start to the season where you kind of see a lot of those, hey, I was kind of worried about this, and I feel like I was right in worrying about that, even though it's only 3 games. But there was a lot of good this weekend. And, oddly enough, it doesn't excuse the bad defense. It doesn't excuse the route on Saturday. You blew a save on Thursday. All of this stuff is true, right? But at the end of the day, you could have won this series, and you really easily could have taken 2 or 3 on the road from the defending champs after they got their rings. I loved the pettiness of those rings as well, putting the logos of the teams that they beat on the road. I love that. I love stuff like that. But it's all just to say it was a very interesting weekend. There was a lot of good that we saw, a lot of stuff that was not good. They need to clean that defense up more than anything. I think one thing that we've talked about going back to last year that did not change this year is they have to be great on that marginal stuff. They have to play clean baseball. They have to be good on the base paths. They have to play good defense. You expect Craig Counsell to help you do a lot better of a job of that, because I think they are going to make better decisions on a daily basis, which is not something we always thought last year. That being said, you can't make so many errors. You have to be cleaner. And if you're not going to blow teams out, that's where all that stuff happens. And, that's what we saw on Thursday. Don't score enough runs. You put the ball in your bullpen's hands. ALLCITY has been really good for you, and I think he's going to be great more often than not. But you play enough one-run games, man. Ryan said it on our post-game show on Thursday. You invite a lot of randomness. So there's a lot of ways you can take it. I do love reading the chat because it's like, the spectrum is extremely wide of the way people are kind of taking these things. But yeah, I do love it.
I just want to, I know I came in here and was like guns a-blazing, in terms of frustration, but I will agree with, I think whoever said in the chat just now that there were more good than bad. I do agree with that. I do think that there was more good from the weekend than bad outside of just the losses themselves. Like Bellinger looked good. I think Seiya's had good at bats. The results haven't been there. I like the fact that Seiya is swinging early in counts, because I know that was a thing last year that people talked about, and how he took too many, it became a trend where he took every first pitch. I know the results weren't there today specifically until the very end, but I like the at bats. I like Michael Busch's approach in his at bats. He should have hit a home run today. He would have hit a home run if it was at Wrigley Field today.
I'm just happy they're out of Texas. By the way, not a fan of that stadium. No offense to the Texas Rangers fans, but the camera view is bad. I feel like I need my binoculars to watch the game on TV.
Yeah. I don't like
so that. Again, there were. I do agree. I do think that there were more good than bad, but I think what the bad is overwhelming people, because a lot of them are just regular things that we've been talking about.
I would be curious. And of course you can't do this, but I would be curious if the results had been the same, but Steele is not missing a month, how everybody would feel about this. And of course, you lost your ace, so you shouldn't feel good about it.
Right.
But even Brendan, for you, if you had just lost that game, Steele pitches good, but ALLCITY blows it, and you're not as concerned as you already were about the starting pitching depth, I think maybe you feel a little better about this weekend. But I think dropping the series, seeing some of the other stuff, and of course losing a guy that very nearly could have won the Cy Young last year, that's going to sting.
We are on a roller coaster, and the seatbelt is not tight. That's what the season is. And every little injury, the seatbelt comes a little bit looser. And that is the risk Jed Hoyer accepted going into this year. And to Cody's point, honestly, Cody, I'm more frustrated than you. And I'm not going to go on the show because I'm not going to invite the angst of the chat. But overall, I'm very frustrated dating back to 2021. I think the players on this roster now have some potential, and I think the roster has a lot of potential, especially with the high volume of prospects. But I genuinely loathe how we got to this point. This is an unacceptable position to be in here. We're in year 4 of a rebuild. And as a fan, it makes me want to move on. That's really what it makes me feel like. At the same time, though, it can work out, and it works out by graduating and filling these roles at the corners in the rotation with cost controllable guys. And that is a direction this year. I need to see it. If we don't see it this season, I'm out. I'm out on the front office. I'm out on everyone. I want everyone fired. I'm being serious here.
Oh, I know.
I've been frustrated with this for the past 4 years.
I know. It's just funny that we were talking about it's only 3 games. Everybody has these perspectives, and it takes 5 minutes for Brendan to be like, you know what, Jed? Like I said, I think I would count probably the three of us amongst the group that kind of wants to hold the organization to a higher standard. This has been a long process. And, here we are in 2024, 2.5 years removed from the big trade deadline. And we're, still talking about filling some of these positions. We're still talking about trying to maybe finesse your way to get this roster to win a bad division. And I think a lot of us had just hoped for more. That being said, you welcome the Rockies to Wrigley Field. It's a long season, and we'll see how we feel at
That's the beauty about baseball.
Week. Yeah.
That's the beauty about baseball. It really, we are so stupid.
Yeah.
How stupid do us three have to be to do a show on Sundays?
Well, you're very
on
stupid,
the show.
but
I mean, it's really, this is the stupidest sport you can possibly follow. And as a result, you could sneak your way into the World Series. That's in a way why we watch this stupid sport.
Yeah.
It could
happen.
And
it's just one of those things where let's see, maybe by the end of next week, Bush is on a heater and we're feeling better about, the first base situation. Morel's putting in that work. I'm not sure who's he's doing the majority of that work with.
I think Dansby should be his personal coach. I know he made that air today, and Cody wants to cut Dansby Swanson now and everything. But you know what? He still should be.
Didn't say that.
I mean, that's what it sounded like to me. That's what I was thinking when you were saying it. But I
just think that he has to be better, man. If there's, I guess the point that I was trying to make with that is that if this team's gonna make the playoffs, then the guys who are proven have to play better, man. I'm expecting more from Nico Horner this year. I'm expecting at least the same level of play from Dansby Swanson this year. I'm expecting Ian Happ to not necessarily get 4 hits and walk in a run in the 9th inning or whatever, but I'm expecting him to be a guy who gets on base a ton like he did today.
Listen, Dansby has to make improvements at the plate too.
He
knows it. He's the one who's going to say all this too. So of course, he needs to make that play. Obviously,
he did hit the first homer of the season.
That's just
I will say,
matter.
Dansby needs to make the play, and I'll turn it back to you, Corey.
Yeah,
make the play. But those artificial infields are a disaster for the sport. Okay. He's playing on rubber beads. It's like trying to field a kickball in 6th grade PE class over there. They need to get the hell out of Texas and back to the field.
Brendan's got the excuses lined up. No, but I do think that the Dansby misplay and even the conversation about it, again, it highlights margin for error is just so slim on this team. Yep. You saw it on Thursday, one bad pitch from your closer, game's tied. One bad defensive play. It wasn't just one bad defensive play today on Sunday, but one bad play, floodgates open. They just don't have that room for error. Maybe as the season goes on, guys develop, get hot, make adjustments, etc. Maybe you do develop more room for that. But this is a team that just with the way that they were built, especially against a team like the Texas Rangers that has a deep lineup like that and is obviously coming off winning a World Series, you got to be perfect. You got to be tight. You have to be really, really good on these marginal things. So I think we can wrap up there. We can let everybody get back to their Easter Sunday or whatever you are doing on this particular weekend. If you do not celebrate that holiday, obviously coming up, the Cubs will be at Wrigley Field starting tomorrow on Monday. Here's the thing. You're going to have to monitor every day. I don't know what their plan is as it relates to the weather, but as I said, the weather projects to be bad on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So what the Cubs are going to do about that with the Colorado Rockies in town, we will see. Saw some folks saying that, they hope that they can make a decision on that before they drive to the game. I understand that. Obviously, I'm not in the suburbs anymore, but I do remember that kind of feeling where you drive all the way down there, you wait in line, and then they put the tarp on and bang the game.
It happened to me every single time when I was in Chicago.
So the schedule for this week, Monday is a 1:20 game. That is the Cubs home opener. If that gets off, that is supposed to be Shota Imanaga's MLB debut. So very excited about that. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, both 6:40 starts here in Chicago, off day Thursday. And then we get right back at it, kind of throwing this team up against the best that the league has when the Dodgers come to town Friday through Sunday. So similar to kind of this weekend in Texas, you are going to have to be ready to play some good ball because Mookie Betts is coming to town and Mookie Betts is awfully good. So
Cody will scream at him from the
be an
outfield.
interesting week. It'll be nice to see one Christopher Lee Bryant for a few days this season. I do wish him luck and a better healthy season, not for the
World
next
Series
3 days.
champion
So,
Christopher Lee Bryant.
yes, and do you remember who he won that World Series with, Brendan?
I think it was 2016, the Chicago Cubs.
I believe that's correct. Yes, Cody, it looks like he has a poster above his left shoulder.
What does that say in the back? I can't see it. My
World
eyes
Series
are watering.
champion.
Champions. Oh, that's what it
Yes.
says.
He was also the MVP that season. A lot of people
Look
forget
at that.
too.
Look at that.
All right. We had over 200 people here watching live. If you're listening later, watching later, we appreciate you joining. If you don't mind on YouTube, hitting that like button on your way out, we appreciate it. Brendan and I will be here with you on Sundays live after the games all season long to break down the week that was in Cubs baseball. Cody, Luke, Ryan, back with you tomorrow. They'll have you ready for the home opener, post game, all that. You know, you guys can count on CHGO and the CHGO Cubs team for all your Cubs coverage. We appreciate all of you in the live chat or wherever and whenever you are listening. Brendan and I will talk to you again next Sunday. And as always, go Cubs.
We all silly like the mayor.